Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, stepping outside, and hearing something impossible. Not birds, not traffic. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, 40 feet long, 7 tons, walking through what used to be your neighborhood. Sounds ridiculous. But here's the thing. There was a moment in Earth's history when that future was surprisingly close to becoming reality. Around 66 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 10 kilometers, 6 miles wide, slammed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The impact released more energy than billions of nuclear bombs. Wildfires swept across continents. Earthquakes shook the planet. Tsunamis, hundreds of feet high, crashed into coastlines. Dust and sulfur filled the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for months, possibly years. Plants began dying, food chains collapsed, and about 75% of all species on Earth disappeared, including every non-avian dinosaur. But what if that asteroid had simply missed? Maybe it arrived a few minutes earlier. Maybe a tiny gravitational change nudged it off course. Maybe it passed harmlessly between Earth and the Moon, disappearing forever into deep space. No impact, no global extinction, no reset button for life on Earth. At first, it might seem like almost nothing changes. The dinosaurs survive another day, then another year, then another 1,000 years, but over millions of years. That single missed collision completely rewrites the future of our planet, and there's a very good chance you never exist. So, the asteroid misses. Earth doesn't shake. The sky never turns black. There are no worldwide firestorms, no years-long winter, no mass extinction. Life simply keeps going. And that's exactly what makes this scenario so fascinating, because evolution doesn't have a destination. It doesn't care about humans. It doesn't work toward intelligence. It simply rewards whatever happens to survive long enough to reproduce. And for more than 160 million years, dinosaurs had already proven they were exceptionally good at that. Long before the asteroid arrived, they had become the dominant animals on land. Tiny dinosaurs hunted insects in dense forests. Massive sauropods stretched their necks high into the treetops. Armored herbivores wandered open plains. Feathered predators chased prey with incredible speed and precision. Every major ecological niche was already occupied. If you were a mammal living during the late Cretaceous period, life wasn't exactly easy. Most mammals were tiny. Many were no larger than modern mice, squirrels, or rabbits. They spent much of their lives hiding underground, climbing trees, or sneaking through the darkness after sunset, not because they preferred the night, but because the daytime belonged to dinosaurs. During the day, giant predators ruled the landscape. Every open field, every riverbank, every forest clearing could hide an animal many times larger than anything mammals had ever evolved to challenge. In other words, mammals weren't waiting for their chance to take over. They simply didn't have one. Then, the asteroid changed everything. Within what was, geologically speaking, the blink of an eye, entire food chains collapsed. Giant herbivores disappeared. Their predators soon followed. Ecosystems that had been stable for tens of millions of years suddenly became empty. Forests recovered, grasslands expanded, rivers, mountains, and coastlines remained. But many of the animals that had dominated them were gone, and for the first time in over 160 million years, Earth was full of opportunity. Small mammals, which needed less food and could survive on almost anything, suddenly found themselves living in a world with fewer predators, less competition, and countless empty ecological niches waiting to be filled. Over millions of years, they grew larger. Some returned to the oceans and became whales. Others took to the skies as bats. Some became horses, elephants, wolves, primates, and eventually us. But if the asteroid never arrives, none of those opportunities appear. Dinosaurs never surrendered the planet. Mammals remain small, hidden, and forever living in the shadow of giants. So, dinosaurs survive. Mammals stay small. But does that automatically mean humans never never exist? Not necessarily, but the odds become incredibly small. To understand why, we need to forget something most of us unconsciously believe. It's easy to imagine human evolution as if it were always supposed to happen, as if evolution had a plan, starting with tiny mammals, then monkeys, then apes, then humans. But evolution doesn't work like that. It has no destination, no blueprint, no finish line. It simply responds to whatever environment exists at that moment. If the environment changes, evolution changes with it. And if the environment never changes, neither does the evolutionary path. After the dinosaurs disappeared, mammals suddenly had millions of empty opportunities. Some adapted to open grasslands. Others became fast runners. Some returned to the oceans. Others evolved powerful claws, sharp teeth, or incredible intelligence. One small branch eventually climbed into the trees, becoming the earliest primates. Those primates slowly developed better eyesight, more flexible hands, larger brains, and over tens of millions of years, that branch eventually produced chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, and finally, Homo sapiens. But here's the problem. Every single step in that chain depended on opportunities created after the dinosaurs disappeared. Without the asteroid, those opportunities may never exist. Dense forests remain dominated by dinosaurs. Open plains remain filled with giant herbivores. Rivers remain controlled by ancient reptiles. The largest predators continue ruling every ecosystem. Small mammals still survive. But survival isn't the same as domination. They spend millions of years hiding, reproducing, eating insects, avoiding predators, living almost exactly as their ancestors did. Could some mammals still slowly become larger? Maybe. Evolution is full of surprises, but every increase in size, every move into a new habitat, every attempt to compete with dinosaurs would immediately face animals that had already been perfecting those lifestyles for more than 160 million years. Imagine trying to build a small family business while competing against companies that have already dominated the market for longer than the Himalayas have existed. That's roughly the challenge mammals would face. The dinosaurs already occupied nearly every major ecological role: fast hunters, giant grazers, tree browsers, river predators, armored defenders, small insect eaters. There simply wasn't much room left, which means our own ancestors, tiny shrew-like mammals hiding beneath the feet of giants, might never receive the opportunity needed to become anything more. They don't necessarily go extinct. They simply stay small, stay hidden, stay insignificant. And after another 10 million years, 20 million, 50 million, Earth could still belong to dinosaurs, not because they're smarter, not because evolution prefers them, but because they got there first. But here's where this story becomes even more fascinating. It's easy to assume that if humans never appeared, Earth would simply remain a giant dinosaur zoo forever, the same animals, doing the same things, for another 66 million years. But evolution almost never stands still. Every generation is slightly different from the one before it. Tiny mutations appear. Some disappear. Others spread. Over enough time, small changes become enormous ones. After all, the Tyrannosaurus Rex that lived 66 million years ago looked nothing like the earliest dinosaurs that appeared more than 230 million years earlier. That's over 160 million years of continuous evolution. To put that into perspective, modern humans have existed for only about 300,000 years. Dinosaurs ruled Earth for more than 500 times longer than our entire species has existed. So if the asteroid never strikes, why would evolution suddenly stop? It wouldn't. New species would continue appearing. Old ones would disappear. Forests would change. Climates would shift. Continents would slowly drift. Predators would evolve. Prey would evolve alongside them. The dinosaur world would continue transforming, just as ours has. And that's where one dinosaur becomes especially interesting. Meet Troodon. Now, before the comments explode, we should mention something important. Scientists still debate whether Troodon is actually a valid dinosaur genus. Some fossils once grouped under that name have since been reclassified, but the general type of small, bird-like, intelligent theropod, it represents absolutely existed. And that's what matters here. Compared to most dinosaurs, these animals had unusually large brains for their body size, forward-facing eyes, excellent vision, fast movement, sharp, grasping hands, and behaviors that may have been surprisingly sophisticated. They weren't anywhere close to human intelligence, but they were among the smartest dinosaurs we know of. Back in the 1980s, Canadian paleontologist Dale Russell proposed one of the most famous what-if ideas in science. He imagined, what if an intelligent dinosaur lineage had survived the asteroid, given millions of additional years? Could natural selection slowly favor even larger brains, better communication, more precise hands, eventually tool use? Russell even created a speculative model nicknamed the Dinosauroid. It walked upright, had large eyes, a much bigger brain, hands capable of manipulating objects, and a body shape that looked surprisingly familiar. The reconstruction became famous, but today, most scientists don't think evolution would actually produce something that looked so human. Evolution doesn't copy successful body plans. It solves problems using whatever anatomy already exists. Birds, which are living dinosaurs, are proof of that. They became incredibly successful without ever evolving human-like hands. So if intelligent dinosaurs ever appeared, they probably wouldn't build skyscrapers, drive cars, or type on keyboards. Their civilization, if one ever emerged at all, could look completely alien. Maybe tools designed around claws instead of fingers. Maybe architecture grown from living plants. Maybe communication through colors, sounds, or feather displays. Maybe technologies we can't even imagine, because they'd be solving problems from an entirely different evolutionary starting point. Or none of that happens. Intelligence might never become useful enough. Dinosaurs could remain incredibly successful animals without ever taking the path that eventually produced science, civilization, or technology. And that's the hardest thing about alternate history. We naturally assume evolution always ends with something like us, but we're not evolution's goal. We're simply one incredibly unlikely outcome that happened to work. In another timeline, the dominant intelligent species on Earth might have looked nothing like a human at all. So, 66 million years pass. The asteroid never arrives. Dinosaurs never disappear. Mammals never inherit the planet. And eventually, we arrive at the present day. Except it isn't our present day at all. It would be a world that feels almost impossible to recognize. Forget cities. Forget highways. Forget airplanes crossing the sky. Forget satellites orbiting overhead. None of it exists, because the species that built those things never evolved. Instead, Earth is still ruled by reptiles. Imagine standing on the edge of an enormous forest. Trees, hundreds of feet tall, disappear into the clouds. The air feels warmer, more humid, filled with sounds no human has ever actually heard. Giant insects buzz through the canopy. Strange bird-like calls echo from somewhere in the distance. Then, the ground begins to shake, not from an earthquake, but from footsteps. A herd of gigantic herbivorous dinosaurs slowly moves through the forest, stripping leaves from treetops as easily as giraffes eat bushes today. Some weigh as much as modern passenger jets. Others carry armor thicker than a tank. And every one of them has spent millions of additional years evolving beyond anything we know from fossils. They're not museum pieces anymore. They're modern animals. Faster, smarter, better adapted. Somewhere nearby, predators are watching. Not necessarily Tyrannosaurus Rex. That species may have disappeared millions of years earlier through normal evolution, just as mammoths eventually disappeared in our own timeline. Instead, new apex predators have taken its place. Descendants of ancient hunters, sharper, faster, more specialized, perfectly adapted for a world where dinosaurs never lost control. Oceans would be just as extraordinary. Massive marine reptiles may still dominate coastal waters, or perhaps entirely new predators evolved from surviving lineages. Coral reefs would support creatures unlike anything divers see today. Beaches would never be crowded with tourists, only with tracks left by enormous reptiles crossing the shoreline. The skies would look different too. Birds still exist. Remember, birds are dinosaurs. They survived the extinction event in our timeline, but in this world, they evolve alongside countless other dinosaur relatives that never disappeared. Every forest, every mountain, every coastline would feel alive with unfamiliar species. Mammals still exist, but they're rarely the stars of the ecosystem. Most remain small, secretive, living underground, inside trees, or emerging only at night when the larger predators become less active. You might spend an entire day exploring one of these prehistoric forests and never see an animal larger than a fox. Not because large mammals don't exist, but because evolution never gave them the opportunity to become common. Instead, that role belongs to dinosaurs. Every ecosystem, every food chain, every continent has spent another 66 million years refining one dominant design. And perhaps the strangest part is that nobody living in this world would think any of it was unusual. To them, giant dinosaurs aren't monsters. They're simply wildlife, just as elephants, lions, whales, and wolves feel ordinary to us. This would simply be their normal, and ours would never have existed. So, after everything we've imagined, after 66 million years of dinosaurs continuing to rule the planet, after worlds without humans, without cities, without civilization, we arrive at one final question. Was our existence inevitable? Or did it all depend on one unimaginably lucky accident? It's tempting to believe that intelligence would have appeared eventually, that if humans never evolved, something else surely would have. But the truth is, we simply don't know. Intelligence is incredibly useful, but surprisingly, it's also incredibly rare. Life has existed on Earth for nearly 4 billion years. During that time, millions upon millions of species have evolved. Fish, insects, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, birds. Yet only one species has built rockets. Only one species has invented science. Only one species has walked on the moon. And that suggests something extraordinary. Human intelligence may not have been evolution's destination. It may have been evolution's accident. A beautiful, unbelievably unlikely accident. Think about everything that had to happen. The asteroid had to strike Earth at exactly the right time. Mammals had to survive. Primates had to evolve. Ancient apes had to leave the forests. Early humans had to survive ice ages, diseases, predators, famine, and thousands of generations of uncertainty. Remove just one of those events, and the entire story changes. Maybe dinosaurs continue ruling forever. Maybe mammals remain tiny forever. Maybe another intelligent species appears 50 million years later. Or maybe Earth spends billions of years filled with incredible life, but never produces another civilization at all. We like to think of ourselves as the center of history, but from the planet's perspective, we're incredibly new. If Earth's entire history were compressed into a single calendar year, dinosaurs would dominate from late December 13th until December 26th. Modern humans wouldn't appear until the final half hour, before midnight on New Year's Eve. Everything you've ever known, every language, every empire, every invention, every song, every book, every country, every scientific discovery has happened in that final, tiny fraction of Earth's story, which makes one small rock from space one of the most important objects in human history. Because without it, there's a very good chance you never ask this question, you never watch this video, and I never tell this story. One asteroid didn't just end the age of dinosaurs, it may have begun the age of us. But now, I'm curious what you think. If the asteroid had missed, would dinosaurs still rule the Earth today? Could another intelligent species have eventually evolved? Or was humanity always destined to appear one way or another? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring history's biggest what-ifs, subscribe, because this is only one timeline, and there are countless others waiting to be explored.